I believe this technology that's built on an open protocol, that's fair, that's accessible to all, is going to dramatically change the way we think about the tools that we use, and especially in the way we interact with each other economically. The digital world is part of our DNA now. It's part of how we share our experiences, it's part of how we consume our entertainment, and it's part of how we keep in touch with our loved ones, wherever they are. Now, I think it's best not to have your head stuck in the sand on this issue. I think money can be digital too. Now, human beings have optimized all kinds of things. It's kind of what we're really, really good at. We used to live in caves and then we built shelters. We used to walk around and then we invented the wheel and we made roads and we've done all kinds of things to make our lives a little bit better. Well, we've also tried different forms of money. And this is a topic that should be of real interest to people because a lot of us will spend our entire lives in pursuit of money. And I definitely encourage you to do some saving too. But the most important aspect of this is that we've optimized our money several times. We used to barter, and then we created coins, and then we tried gold, and we've tried paper, and now it may be time to think about it in a slightly different way. What human beings need in order to facilitate commerce is actually a transaction network. Now, we interact with these every single day of our lives, whether it's PayPal or MasterCard or Visa or these other systems that let us move value around the world. And they all have three things in common. They have a currency that rides on top of them. They have a ledger system that keeps track of who owns what. And then they have settlement with a high degree of certainty. Those are the ingredients you need to have a transaction network function. Now, a simple task like sending money from here to a friend should be really quick, right? It's 2017. You know what's crazy? Is it's faster to send an email from here to New York than it is to send $100 today. Banks and all the intermediaries make it very expensive and costly because they have to run billions of dollars of infrastructure just to do simple things like send information around the world. Well, what if there was a better way? Well, in come a new technology called blockchain technology, and it was pioneered by an open source project released in 2009. It has been running without interruption for over 8 years now. And this is really interesting. A blockchain is basically like a big spreadsheet in the cloud, except instead of there being one copy of this, there are actually copies of it all over the world. And every single one of them is in exactly the same state all the time. Now, if there's one thing you take away from this conversation, try and let this piece settle in. When an update happens on this record-keeping system, it is updated globally and simultaneously. There's actually more compute power backing up this network than all of Google. And a lot of people don't know that, but it's true. Now, here's what's really, really cool about this. Once you have a record-keeping system that is globally distributed, that not one single person can alter or change, you have a really, really exciting opportunity to reinvent lots of new things. And the first project that's been placed on this network is money. So maybe some of you will have heard about a digital currency called Bitcoin. And it's been in circulation now for quite a while. Last year, it was the world's best performing currency on Earth. And there's some reasons for that. But here's what's really exciting. Anyone on the planet can now download a piece of software and instantly put it on their phone that's completely free and open source. You can actually, with 10,000 lines of open source software code, replace your bank. Now let that sink in for a second. Anyone on Earth, regardless of where they were born, what color their skin is, what their credit score looks like, wherever they are, can now put an app on their phone and then start to transact with anybody else on the planet. Now, this is going to start to change an awful lot of things. So if you've never seen a digital currency transaction, do some research online and check them out. It's pretty neat. You basically have an address that you can share with anybody, and then they can make a transaction with you. It works an awful lot like email. I can't blindly email somebody if I don't know their address, but if I do, then I can send them a message. And it's the same thing with digital currency. When you make that transaction, it happens on a peer-to-peer network. There's no bank, there's no Forex market, there's no intermediary. It's entirely between the individuals that choose to participate on this open network. And when the transaction happens, it gets broadcast to that big spreadsheet in the sky, and all of the nodes in the network update simultaneously. Everyone agrees that a certain amount of value moved from one place to the next. So why is this a really big deal? Well, let's talk a little bit about this. There are $7.7 trillion in credit card transactions last year, costing consumers hundreds of billions of dollars in fees. Every time you swipe your card, they take a little bit of that, and they actually charge you for it. So all this is costing us. all of this technology has been built by an open source community of some of the top cryptographers and computer scientists in the world. And what's really neat about open innovation is it invites everyone to come participate and do code review and make the project better. So we actually have a way of upgrading this system to make it faster and more effective over time. So what is going to happen next is kind of the big question everyone's been asking. Well, every single year since 2009, this network has quietly doubled in transaction volume, with more and more people testing it and trying it year after year. So let's remember about that lily pond for just a moment. But once you have that record-keeping system, that big spreadsheet in the cloud that constantly agrees about what happened and no central entity owns it, well, you can do a lot more than just economic transactions. You can use it to store reference information to things that you own, like assets, like your house, or shares in a corporation, or maybe diamonds or precious artwork. And there's a company working on that right now. Actually, there's a lot of companies working on that to use the blockchain to keep track of all the property rights in the world. Property rights are the very basic need for capital formation. If you don't have a house, you can't use it as leverage to get a loan for other things. So if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, you need to be thinking about some of these things. Supply chains are kind of interesting. All over the world today, we put things in our bodies and we think that maybe they're organic or that they're sourced from the place that is marketed to us from. But there's actually very little way to prove that that happened. Well, if there was a network that was impossible to forge, that could track the origin of things like tuna from sea to a fishing boat, to transportation, to our plate, and we could verify the provenance of all those things happening, we could bring radical transparency to the food we put on our plates, but to much more than that too. I think payment rails are really, really obvious ones. All those people around the world that now have a smartphone can now participate and become harnessed by economic activity on the internet. And that is tremendously powerful. So let's keep that in mind too. But maybe one of the most compelling reasons, and one we should think about the most right now, is a store of value. So a lot of us last year who hold pounds in our balances saw a depreciation of 17%. When that happens in a frontier and emerging market, you have headlines of collapse and complete financial instability. That happened here. And it wasn't just here. It happened in Argentina, in Venezuela, in Greece, in Ukraine, in China. Why is the money devaluating? You have all kinds of experts to talk about this, but it's pretty simple. If they keep making much, much more of it, then everything that we own becomes worth less and less and less. In fact, it's all designed to encourage you to flip the money over, spend, and increase the amount of monetary rapidity. And there's some economists that think that's a really good idea. I think there are some that would argue that that's not the case. And as a store of value, imagine being a person that was able to hold on to a digital asset that you yourself are the bearer of, the custodian of. And if you could hedge against the global risk or hedge against even the local risk of a currency manipulation, well, that might be something that would be important to you. So the most interesting thing, if we just spend a few minutes looking over the horizon, and if we all took out a 20-pound note today and looked at it, we might think it was kind of funny, right? We'd have to explain who the picture of the old person is and why it has all those numbers on it, and it's kind of dirty, and it's inconvenient to use for a lot of transactions. So what if that actual note was a piece of information that you could program to do other types of things? Well, this is where the future gets really exciting. Imagine that your refrigerator has a balance on it. It's actually a smart device connected to the internet, and it knows what your budget is for food this month. And then when you run out of the beers in your fridge, it actually dials up the local drone delivery service that flies over to Amazon, that picks up a 6-pack of beer, that flies it back and drops it off in front of your house, and then it goes off and lands on your neighbor's roof to recharge on the solar panel that that guy invested in. And when that all happens, a geolocational trigger goes off, the refrigerator makes payments to everybody, and you have beer before you get home. If you don't think that's not cool, well, I don't know, but I've got other ideas too. But I think that world's not that far away. 10 years ago, we didn't have an iPhone. Where will we be 10 years from now? So, whether you were born in the first world or the third, whether you were running a for-profit or a non-profit, whether you're a parent sending funds home to a daughter or a child sending remittances back home to your parents, I believe this technology that's built on an open protocol, that's fair, that's accessible to all, is going to dramatically change the way we think about the tools that we use, and especially in the way we interact with each other economically. So, I think and submit to you that it's time to reimagine money. So thank you very much for your time today.